Hey everybody, welcome back. I got a fun little screenshot I saw this morning. Let's see if I can put that on there. It's from one of my favorite games, Red Dead Redemption. I believe the user is Raxory, Raxory. I have dyslexia, so I gotta say it slow so I don't accidentally. Alright, so pretty painting. Looks to me like a sunrise. Oh heck, it could be a sunset. I guess you can never really tell. It is what it is in your head. So, I thought this painting might not take so long and it might make for a fun little demonstration. Alright, so, I got myself my paint that I left out from my live stream yesterday. We're just going to go ahead and use this. This is my palette that I use. It is just a chunk of particle board. But you don't need anything fancy when you're painting with me. You just got to make sure you have the will to learn, and heck, if you're just here to watch a painting be made, that works too. Alright, so first things first, especially if you have the sun actively in your painting. The painting I used yesterday, you can still see there's a bunch of black, so I'm going to have to be careful and make sure I don't accidentally run into it too much. Thankfully, I let a slight skin develop, so I should be able to, yeah, there it goes. Should be able to just like grab it, get underneath it, peel it up, move it to the side. And I said, got a nice little skin on it still, so there should be fresh paint underneath. Alright, so to get this thing started, we need ourselves, I'll go a little bit more yellow for my palette. Let me get something bright for that sun that's coming up. Alright, let's get this going. So, a little bit of yellow on there. Actually, I loaded that up pretty good. I'll get a little, I said yellow, I meant white. A little bit of white on there, a little bit of yellow. You gotta see. Is this one better? Maybe it is. There he goes. So, a little bit of yellow, a little bit of white. Not too much. Because you want to brighten up this area, because that sun and that, you know, is going to inform all the colors that are around it. This is an old sketch that I did, and I just decided, well, if I'm going to sit around with this canvas and sketching on it for so long, I might as well do something completely different, ignore what I was thinking back then. So I'm going to come about 2/3 up on the page. That's where it's going to start going down. We're just going to get this paint moving. When you're working with acrylic, especially, you know, if you're trying to paint landscapes, if you're looking for a certain effect, it's a good idea to kind of have a plan in mind, just so that when it starts to dry, because acrylic's going to dry faster than, say, like your oils and all that, you want to kind of move a little bit quicker so you get all those fun little blending effects. And you can kind of see how, just like that, there's a little bit of warmth starting to happen here. And all I'm doing is coming in with the corner of my brush, starting where I think that sun should be, and just working out from there. Now, when I intend to switch colors, I'm going to have to clean this brush out. I say that, but I'm notoriously not good at it. I'm a pent on the lazy, impatient side when it comes to a painting, so I'll very often try to move as quick as possible. Now, if it takes you longer to do a painting, that's okay. A lot about painting is just enjoying the process. You know, doing something creative, maybe feeling good about yourself a little bit too. Alright, we're getting brighter and brighter as we push this yellow out into the page, and it's just going to mix as it moves along. I said we're not doing any other color yet, just yellow and white. You don't need anything any fancier than that. If you got a different kind of yellow, go ahead and use it. It'll just be a slightly different sunset for you. Boy, I tell you what. Let's see if I pull that up. It's kind of very soft, muted yellow at this point. I'm going to come in here. Let's clean my brush out. Got my bucket of water at my feet. I beat the devil out that brush. Alright, we're going to go on to some blue. See right there. I'm going to go back in, touch of white, and I'm going to start let's just say right here from this corner. I'm going to work this blue in. A little bit more white. I'm going to soften that blue up. And I'm just going to push that blue along the top of this page. And we're going to gently work it in to that yellow. Now as I get closer to this yellow, I'm trying to get my brush stroke softer and softer. Because you don't want that blue to just completely overpower what you just did. That wonderful yellow you just laid down. But as you work it down, you see it's starting to pick up all these interesting little green colors. It's really going to add some nice softness to that brightness. And look at this, see right here, all sorts of little things start to happen right off the bat. And that's just one of the fun things about painting like this. You just kind of get to see things happen as you go along. Here we go. Softly, softly, softly work that in. A little bit of blue, just a tiny bit. I'm going to go mostly white. There's blue buried in there somewhere. Hopefully you can see it. Let's see, there it is. There's some in there. If you don't see it, well, you just have to take my word for it, I guess. I think the landscape that I showed has a very slight, let's see, very slight gradient. Just going, I said gradient in the landscape, I meant to say. Just edging its way up. So we're just gonna say, maybe it's gonna stop right there. Touch, just a tiny touch of water. I'm gonna loosen up some of this paint on this side. There we go. You want to do it too much because you'll actually start to lift some of it off the canvas if you use too much water. Which could be a good or bad thing if you want to, like, you know, say edit a bit later. Alright, so let's go back into that white. Let's go just touch that yellow again. Work back from this center, and we're going to go the other direction. We're just going to push and pull these two things. Now I said my land's going to go like that, but you really want to pull that sky's color, you know, a little bit down into your land too, because that's going to help bring your painting into a nice balance. And that's kind of the idea that you want. Because if it's in the sky, there's a really good chance that a color is going to be seen and represented in your land a bit. We're just trying to soften this edge. We want this to be a nice, soft kind of glow. We don't want to be afraid of that blue and yellow running into each other, because, well, that's what they do in real life. And that's okay. A little bit more blue, a little bit white. We'll start in this corner again. And we're going to work our way down towards that beautiful, soft yellow and white we have down in the other corner. It's real gentle. The more you try to soften it up, you know, with that brush as it's drying off, the better results you're going to get. Because you can see there's hardly any paint left on it except for just, you know, what's just immediately adhered to the bristles. But you can play this real softly back and forth for a while until you get a nice even blend. Really just going to get it to where you feel good about it. So a little bit of yellow, a little bit of white, just playing around this guy. I didn't clean my brush out. I should have. Lessons still to be learned by me after painting for 20 some odd years. All right. Yellow, a lot of white. Work our way through. And I'm just doing a little side to side thing. At this point, I'm just laying down on my base color. I'm not trying to worry about too many details, you know. Fun things will pop in and out as I'm going, and that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and grab myself a slightly bigger flat brush. Flat brush just is a brush that is roughly flat at the edge. I don't tend to memorize the names of brushes that much. I don't see it as all that important. Because honestly, any one of these makes a fantastic brush to work with, so you could absolutely do a wonderful painting primarily just using one brush the entire time. Alright, I'm going to brush out some. I say all my brushes, I don't even throw away the old rough ones. I think the old rough ones are just as fine. Get a little bit of blue, whole lot of white. Get back in these corners. We're just going to work it on in. So as I get closer to that yellow, try to soften it up. Barely touch it. We just want to very softly blend these colors together. And I said the old 2 hairs in air philosophy is great for this, because you can push and pull these colors into a fantastic softness. Now there's no clouds in this painting, but I like a bit of clouds, so I might go back in. I'm going to brush out again. The old paint still in there. So this is a roughly clean and dry brush. And right in between that yellow and blue, just go back and forth. Try to dry that brush out a bit more. Still some of that good old water in there. There we go. We're just working nice and softly over it all. Fantastic. This is looking pretty nice. Clean my brush out again, and I'm not even going back in and grabbing any more paint. I'm just using this nice dry brush. Relatively speaking, it's dry. And I'm just trying to use this paint while it's still wet on the canvas, and I'm just back and forth blending this together. Now, if you want to do something like expand the yellow area, you're just going to do the opposite of what I'm doing right now. Start from that center and work your way out. You want to get further and further from that spot as you go. Now if you came in with this blue and touch right back in the center, you're going to mute all that wonderful color. And if you do, that's fine. You just maybe let it dry a bit. Go back over it again. There we go. Just softening as I get further and further out. I'm going to brush out. I'm just going to work this until I feel good about it. I think it's going pretty good so far. Real soft. Real soft. There we go. Just play with it until you get it just where you want it. There's no right and wrong as long as you feel good about it. And there's nothing complicated going on right here. Just little side to side, almost like a crisscross X pattern, until I get the desired effect that I'm looking for. And I'm just trying to get a simple little glow going. Alright, so I'm going to go in here, touch of white right in the center. I'm going to keep brightening this up. And as I just gradually working my way out further and further from that spot. Put some of that color down here. Now it's kind of hard to see, so I'll pick it up a bit. But all this paint, I'm like just gradually blending it down into that landscape area. Softly, softly, softly. I'm barely touching this canvas right now. There we go. Boy, that's looking nice. Now I don't think there's any clouds in this painting, but I'm a sucker for clouds. We get some big, fantastic clouds in Texas, so no sense not leaning into where you're from. There we go. Put that blue down there. And the good thing about clouds, one of my favorite things, and I'll say it a whole bunch, but I really think it's true. There's really just no wrong way to do a cloud, as long as you feel good about it. Okay, so let's get some clouds in there. Now this is a basically cloudless picture, so I don't want to go too much with that, because I kind of want to stay true to the original picture. But maybe in my world, this painting happened a few moments after that little screenshot from Red Dead Redemption. I'll just come in here. Here goes a little cloud. Maybe a minute or two later, this guy starts to wander through. Just a touch of white. Just come in here. Real gentle. And again, if you want to soften these edges up, just go back in a second. Real light, real gentle. lightly touching, just soften the edge of that cloud up. Now we got all this yellow down here. I'm gonna use a little touch of that yellow, and a little touch of that white, because we got the sun here, and this cloud is slightly above the sun, so you need to have at least some kind of yellow, I think, emphasizing it, making it warm up that cloud some. And because it's here, the highlight of that cloud, or the sun's there, the highlight from the cloud's going to be on the bottom. Should make sense, right? So we come in here, there's a little highlight on the bottom. It saunters on over there. It don't matter. Grab just that white. Let's go lean into that highlight. Oh. Alright, so we got all these bright clouds here highlighting the area. I might just get a tiny touch of that blue again. Not too much, just a little bit, just the tips of my brushes. Just wear it out on my palette a little bit. I say wear it out, when I'm wearing it out on my palette, I'm just taking some of that fresh paint if I don't want it to be too bright. Come back in here. Oh, look at that. Cloud's got a little bit of depth to it now. Get some low lights, some highlights. Just a little touch of blue. Wear it out on my palette a bit. Back in here. Fantastic. I'm gonna just rub some of this extra paint on my palette, wearing it out. Real gentle, real soft. Maybe I'll come on this top side and we'll soften that up too. Real soft. 2 hairs in air. You don't want your bristles to be too strong. That's a real pure bright blue on that one. You see as I go back and forth, just gently softening that cloud up. Like I'm even barely holding it, just little 2 fingers right here. Well, 3 to keep it still enough. Alright, we got some great clouds. And I say you can't hardly mess this up. Just get the clouds to where it makes you feel good about them. So maybe that's where our cloud stops right there. So I'm looking at this land. It is a dried out field. And if you're from Texas, especially in July and August, you know exactly what that looks like. A lot of crispy, very dead looking grass. Alright. I'm going to come in here. I'll grab myself a brand new brush. This color is kind of a yellow ochre. It's kind of a mix of these two. You can buy it straight up from the store if you really feel inclined. And we're going to start, there's a touch of that white too. We'll just work this base color. There we go. We got this little field going. I say I'm not afraid to go right over that color that I put down. The whole reason why we drag all those colors from your sky down is we're trying to push this land section further and further back. There we go. Now this is just straight up yellow ochre at the moment. I am going to try to soften it in just a second. And when you're doing something like that, if you're trying to soften something up, you can go one of 2 ways. But for me, I'll usually put the complementary color down on top of it just to get it dulled down. Because in this picture, it's really muted. That sun's coming up and just, boy, it's the brightest thing in the sky. So, it's really overtaking a lot of this. I got a little bald spot right here. Alright, so, what was I talking about before? Getting that yellow ochre. We'll do a little blue. And I have some red over here. I accidentally spilled in this little top of the palette thing. A little bit of red. We're just pushing these guys together. And you can see it's kind of softened it up with a little bit more yellow ochre in there. We're just going to lean into that color. See how it's softening that up? Really neutralizes it nice and pretty. Alright, come in here. There we go. Look at that. Boy, that's looking right to me. Alright, we'll get a little touch of water. Let's see how we can spread this wonderful guy out even further in that landscape. So this is a really bright color that I put along this edge, and I just want to soften that up, because the further things go back in the atmosphere, your landscape painting, the more it's going to pick up that wonderful sky color, and it's going to mute it. Things in the background tend to be duller and less intense. Things that are up close to you tend to be brighter. Now, there is a fence coming up, and we're going to have to deal with that at some point, but we're just going to work this basic idea down to the corner. There's a cowboy right here, and he's going to block some of this, but that's just fine with me. Alright, touch of white, touch of blue, go back into that red again. They're just all mixed onto the brush all at once. Throw that color down. A little bit more yellow ochre. Warm it up with that nice yellow. You see how that's getting darker and darker and darker? And it's because I put that tiny bit of red and blue in there. And that'll make a purple, and that purple is going to help soften that color. It's going to bring it more into kind of like a brownish color. And you know, if you're looking for some dry grass, this is a great place to start. So about halfway down from there, because the shadows get darker as I get closer, your landscape's going to get more intense. But just like we did with the sky, real light, barely touching it. Just blend this color softly, softly up. This is all one field in front of the person. If it's Red Dead Redemption, I would say it's probably John Marston. One of my favorite video game characters, if you didn't know. And we got this wonderful sun, so I do want to keep some of that fantastic brightness down here because it's warming up this area the most. Alright, we're getting there. So I'm going to touch of water. I want to see if I can loosen up this paint that I'm working on right here, because I just want to pick up as much as possible because I'm trying to get this land color down here finished up, because we're going to paint right all over this base color to start with. Alright, starting to run thin. We'll get a little more yellow ochre, slap it down the middle. We have a little bit of blue. You see, I'm just not being too shy about it, because we can always add a little bit more if we needed to, and if it doesn't turn out right, we can always just come back later when it's a little bit more dry and try it again. And see, darker and darker, but still kind of maintaining that similar balance. And these are colors mixed real raw on there. Yeah, look at that. That's pretty. That's working. You see, as I'm getting closer, these colors are getting darker, more intense. And it's really going to help push all this landscape further back. You know, make sure we don't lose that wonderful saturation that sky does for us. It is a really pretty thing. Pick some more of that up on my brush. Just load it up nice and thick. Now down here. And I said, I'm just throwing down base color at the moment. I'm really trying to not overthink it all that much. Alright. Pick a little bit more up on this. So I'm just going back into the same color. There's a whole bunch on there, so it's really just mixing all the stuff that's still left in there. They would get a touch more water, loosen up what I got left there, pick up a good amount of it. Let's see, that's just a yellow ochre, a little bit of red, a little bit of blue. And honestly, if that's the only colors you got, it'll mix up the same way. Just play around with it. If you got a scrap piece of paper and you're having a booger of a time figuring out how to mix a color, do it on something you're about to throw away. Got an old package from Amazon? Forget about it. Use that box. Amazon gave you a box. You might as well use it. Test out some colors on that. It'll really help your base knowledge of how colors mix together and play with each other. We'll touch of blue, some yellow ochre, a little red. We almost got this wonderful ground cover going. Look at that. Look, isn't that perfect? And you see, as I put it down, I'm leaning a little bit more into that red and blue to balance it out. And we're just getting this wonderful, wonderful earthy tone. If you didn't know, mixing your complementary colors together typically makes a version of brown. So on this one, that red and blue make purple. We got yellow. We have this wonderful earthy kind of brown color going down. A little bit more off my palette. I'm really just trying to grab the last little bits of this stuff right through here. There we go. Just so I can come through here, finish this section up a bit. get a touch of water. We almost got this, but there's some canvas showing through here, so I'm gonna try to get this nice and blended in, filling in little spots that didn't quite get painted up. Now, when using oil, this isn't as big a concern, especially if you're doing like a wet-on-wet technique like Bob Ross used to do, because that wet-on-wet technique's really gonna help move the paint on the canvas in a moment. And as a person who likes to paint quick, well, that's a handy thing for me. Alright, a little bit of yellow ochre into that just big old mess I left there. There should be so much red and blue still there that, let's see, yep, that should be good. We should be able to get all this finished up. And I'm just going to push this color softly, softly back. There's some little, interesting paint, blending going on. Maybe at this point, I'm just going to push that paint right in that canvas. I'm just kind of like almost like a little stab in motion. Just getting those last little spots of the canvas. Maybe these will be those little spot in the canvas where that white is showing through. But all these little like roughed up things, And if you like them, keep them. Maybe in your world that's a little hill or whatever, and all this is coming up in front of it. Maybe all those little grassy things are happening off in the distance. Alright, come in with a clean brush. We're going to try to softly blend some of this out. I don't want it to be quite that hard of a line between this hill and that hill. I kind of want to imply that it's all one gentle rolling hill. So I clean my brush out. It's a little bit moist, so it's still carrying some of that water from when I washed it out before. But softly, softly, you see that hard line that I had earlier just a second ago? Really softened it up. Wow, look at that. Well, we got a sunset coming up now, don't we? Alright, so time to make some big, brave decisions. I'm going to get a touch of this green right here. I'm going to just drop it right there. We're just going to tap it on into that old yellow oak we had earlier. And that's going to help mute that too, because the red and green are complementary colors. So it's going to soften that green up. We're just going to go ahead and made it right here. Right there lives some little bushes. Just dotting the landscape. Just here and there. Don't overdo it too much. Ooh, wait, look at that. Wow. We got a proper Texas morning on our hands, ladies and gentlemen. What's next? What's next? Alright, so in this scene, there's a fence with a cowboy. If you're not a fan of Red Dead Redemption, you just want to keep it simple for yourself. I'm a big fan of westerns. No surprise from Texas, I guess. So, by default, I tend to really like to do western style landscapes. Didn't always used to be that way. Kind of had to come into that in my older age. But, well, better late than never. Alright, so in my world, this is going to be a little fence posted. A little cowboy's posted up on. Nothing too dramatic. I'm just throwing in a dark color. Go ahead and throw in another rail. Touch of black. My palettes are always a hot mess, by the way. Touch of brown. There we go. Perfect. Come in here. I'm going to do another rail. Too late now. No going back. It's there. Alright. I'm going to use the same exact color because if you remember the picture I showed earlier, well, that's starting to work. I think so. We need to get that tree in there, but we're going to do the tree last. The tree's popping out right over the sun, so I kind of want to save that for the end. But yeah, right through here. You can barely even see his highlights on his clothes. Just indicated ever so slightly. And let's say he's right here. I'm just trying to capture the basic shape. I'm not worried about the detail. Heck, in this picture, you can't hardly even see any of it. So, this cowboy's going to be largely implied. Not familiar what implied means. It's just, we're suggesting that he's there. Yeah, just go ahead and block him in. There he goes. He's here with us now, huh? Yep. There we go. And I say his arm's going to come and lean on this fence a little bit. If you have a hard time drawing people, Don't overthink it too much. It's fine. Let's say if I end up not liking the way that turns out, it's okay. I'll go back in later, touch it up, work on it till I get it right. Here we go. And it looks like he's got a little vest on. I like the vest, personally. Alright. Now, see, I'm going to trim his waist down. I gave him kind of a gut, I think. So, that paint's right there. Just clean my brush off. I'm just running that paint with some water in it, and it's going to thin the paint out that's there. You can see how I'm slowly starting to push into that character. I'm going to give him a little bit more of a waist. And I can just go ahead and blend this down. Since we're so close to the bottom of the page, this getting a tad darker is not going to affect very much. You can see it's just like that. Just pushing him in. There we go. Yep. It's good to me. Now, I think just so we can get some separation from this character and that fence, I'm going to grab a touch of this blue and a touch of this black. Why not? Let's go ahead and just get a touch of that red too. We're just going to get a nice rich black. I always think it's good to mix your blacks together. The deeper you can make that color go, I think the better it looks. And we just want to get kind of like that harder shadow. And it's going to just be an ever so slight difference, ever so slight, just real subtle. Saying that this part of him is just blacked out a little bit more than the rest. Alright, let's see if we can darken that rail up some too. We'll add some definition to it. Alright, so our little cowboy's coming together. Now, when I'm trying to get like the fine line, I'm just going to use my cowboy as my little palette thing right now. I'm going to use this edge of my brush, and if you see, kind of cut down to a pretty nice little chisel. I'm just going to come in here and just tap in where I think the rest of his shoulders are. There we go. Looks good. Now it looks like he's got some kind of like light blue whitish shirt. We'll tackle that in a second. Alright, so I'm thinking maybe his face is right there. And he's got a wonderful hat on. And I'm just going to kind of loosely figure out where this guy's head is. I'm just tapping it in. This is going to be kind of like his head and neck. Maybe if I just get the corner of this, lightly start tapping out on that area, we'll get the indication of his nose. And of course, you know, if you got smaller brushes on hand, you can use those. That'll be super handy as well. But if you're short on brushes, I mean, especially if one of these, look at this, you got a little tiny corner on it, just use that corner. That corner's tiny. Alright, let's get myself a nice little thin brush going. I don't even know where I got a lot of these brushes. Some of them just kind of end up in my collection. I'm an art teacher, so I've gone through so many paint brushes over my career that I lose track of which one's which. Some of them from old painting sets my mom got me. Some of them are from students they left behind from years past. They kind of just become donated to the art room, is how I say it. You leave it behind, it's the art rooms until you come back for it. Alright, we got a little bit of his nose going. He's got a little curve to his hat like this. There's barely any paint on this right at the moment, so I'm just kind of lightly sketching that in. Just putting up a framework where I think that hat might go. Alright, a little brown, a little black, a little bit of blue and red. Mix back in there, get a nice little bit of color going. Alright, I'm making this all pretty much the same color. I'll come back in just a second and we'll put some nice highlight on his face so it pops out more. But for what we're doing right now, that should be fine. Now, this paint's really not wanting to move because it's starting to give out on my brush a bit. I said, touch of water, we'll just loosen it up just a little bit, not too much. You can see that thinning it out really helps it move a bit. Alright, we got a little hat going on this cowboy. Old John Marston, he had a tough one. If you haven't played the game, I won't spoil it for you, but Well, I tell you, he's got some heck of adventures ahead of him if you decide to jump into it at some point. Alright, now I'm seeing his shoulders are probably coming up a little bit further than I indicated on this side. He's leaning up on it more on that side, so I'm going to bring his shoulder up just a little bit higher on this edge. Bring his hat a little bit further down. He's sitting there thinking about his farm or something. Or who knows, maybe he's a farmhand at this point. He's just thinking about what's going to come down the road. Alright, so let's go ahead and, there we go. That's starting to look pretty good to me. Just add them shoulders in there. Alright, so he's going to have his arm up next. Grab some of that white. I didn't even clean my brush out. Probably should have, but we're just going to see what happens. So, a little bit of white, a little bit of blue. Mix it up just a little bit. He's going to have his arm, express his arm on that fence. Right there. You can't really see where it wraps around because he kind of has it tucked slightly in front of him. Alright, well, there goes his elbow. And in the picture, his back of his elbow's got a real hard shadow. He's facing that light so directly that I just dropped my paintbrush straight up in the water. Yep, have to go fish it out later. We'll go back in with a different one. It don't matter. Let's get some more of that brown going. Some more of that black. That blue again. Just mix up a fresh little batch right here. All I'm doing. You can hardly even tell the difference. Some of them are so neutralized, but that's probably for the best. I'm wearing my brush out just a little bit on this palette. We're going to start coming in. We're going to figure out where all these little shadows of his shirt go. So the whole back of his outfit is kind of hidden. I'm just using the edge of that brush, come in. I'm just using the like side of it. See how it's got that nice little chisel to it? And I'm just kind of using that as my thin little drawing tool. You don't need to do it too much, just a little bit. Alright, well that shadow's coming in nice. So what we need to do next, we'll come back on the other side, and we're going to brighten it up, make that highlight. A lot of painting is just playing back and forth with dark and light colors. They'll push and pull each other back and forward depending on where you set them. So I got this slightly brighter section. I want to push that section further back. I drop some plants on top of it. So light, dark, lighter, darker. It all plays back and forth on each other, and it's going to make all sorts of wonderful depth in your painting. Alright, we'll grab some of this white we got here, and some of that wonderful blue. Now I need to stay a heck away from this palette. It's got so much neutralized color that I don't want to get into it too much. So we're going to be working off my chunk of board for this nice clean spot over here. We get a nice bright blue, almost like the sky, because it's really picking up that highlight so wonderfully. That a bit more white. And I don't need a huge section. I mean, this is probably about the size of a dime, nickel, you know, nothing too big. I'm mixing here. Just bright, you know what we need? Just a tiny touch of yellow. I'm gonna wear it out right there first, drop it in. That little bit of yellow help warm it up and tell me that it's picking up on some of this wonderful sunset down there. Alright, so now I'm just going back and forth, flatten the brush out so I get that nice, let's see, rotate around Wedgeworth. Nice chiseled edge. We're gonna come in here, and we're kind of just go the other way we did with our shadow. We'll line up on this side right here, dropping in them highlights. Anywhere you want. There you go. And it's just picking up that wonderful brightness. Like I said before, when we want to make this, you know what? Say that light comes around, kisses the back of his arm right here. And his light's just brightening up just a little bit on that back edge. Now I see some of the stuff on his belt's also picking up some highlights. So maybe we'll come down here and just imply that maybe there's some equipment on his belt. Well, that's really bright. There's not a lot of softness or transition to any of that. It's just a bright color next to a duller blue color next to a darker blue color. So clean my brush off. Nice clean brush. Real gentle. Real gentle. We're just going to soften this up. I'm just barely touching some spots. Just soften it at the edges. We want to keep that crisp white edge, but right here where some of these areas are really intense, just going to pull that paint a little bit down. Alright, we're getting there. Now, the sunlight's kissing his nose a bit. Let's get some of that yellow ochre. And because that sun is there, warming up the whole scene, I'm going to say that we could probably just drop a straight yellow ochre on there. Same thing we use back here. Just a little bit on his nose. A little highlight. Nothing too severe. Just a little bit. Clean my brush off some. There we go. Just picking up a little bit of that highlight for him. Alright, well shoot, he's coming along pretty nice. So what we got left, we're going to come over here and I'm going to get some of this color right here. Some of that yellow ochre, I think is what we said to begin with. Use a lot of it. It's informing a whole bunch of this painting so far. Maybe we'll just drop some, maybe some highlight there. Oh man, I'm having fun now. Okay, great. So this is popping out right in front of that sun. Let's go. Grab some of this darker brown color from this palette from before. Watch this. I'm saying the bright spots right through here. Big old chunky tree, just right in the way. Alright, so we got a little tree trunk going. Now what I'm going to do, and I'll practice on here. If you got your palette, practice on it. Look at this, we got this nice section of white that I used before. We're just trying to get this look right here. Oh. Hold it up to the camera. Let's see, where is it? There we go. I'm just trying to get the Brussels display out, like that. We'll just push up on it. I'm just gonna drop this tree right there. There it is. Alright, wow, look at that. We're just going to drop some more of that color. We want to darken this up a little bit because that tree is directly in front of our light source. And I'll show you how to make that light source really pop out in just a second. Here we go. I'm going to just do a tiny touch of water. I want straight back in that color I just made. Air it out just a tiny tad. Ooh, boy, that's so intense. You need to wear it out more than that. Alright, we're going to clean that brush off. Get this whole section up through here. Just blend it on down. So see how you got that water and all of a sudden this paint just wants to start moving. We can just dull this whole section back. Now, you get a sense that tree's maybe casting a shadow across that field right there. Maybe we'll just come in here, I'm using the edge of my brush. Pick some more of that color up we just made. What side am I thinking on? Oh, I see. I gotta rotate this thing around. We're just taking that dark color and we're just coming here. Maybe there's some little grassy things happening through there. Just light taps right next to each other. Yeah, the sun's picking up some of this grass right through here. Oh, there we go. I'm up right on that edge too, just to add some texture to it. You can't even hardly see it, but I know it's there. And it's going to have a wonderful, beautiful texture thing going. There we go. Just maybe those old fence posts or old bushes down off in the distance. Alright, so let's finish it up. I'm going to put that really, really bright sun in there. Now this area looks super bright to me. Maybe we'll move the shadow this way, so I don't want that to be a dark area. Here we go. So, that touch of extra, extra, extra bright white. There almost the sun. Right there. And that fresh little dot of white. It's going to brighten that whole scene up. Let's see, pick it up a little bit. Where's a good lighting in here? Alright. We'll use the other camera. We got Cowboy over here. Here we go. You see that sun coming up over. Boy, that is bright as heck. Hopefully you can see it. I can see it. There we go, Mr. Sun. Bright little Mr. Sun. Just that tiny dot of white. Alright, so what we're going to do now. I'm going to say, it's not like this really that visibly in the source picture, but if I'm looking real close, I almost see a highlight on that fence post. Easy peasy to handle. What we're going to do, grab some of that brown, just good old white. Maybe a little yellow too from that sun. Touch of this little sun color. We got all this dark brown down here. Mix it down in there. I almost want it to be a little bit raw, like marbled. You see that? Let's see if we can get it all the way up there. Focus up, camera. See how those colors kind of like marble together. They're not quite perfectly mixed. Same thing. Now, sometimes when I want to paint a straight line, I'll hold my wrist like that, just to kind of keep it steady. There's a little highlight on that fence. Doesn't have to be perfect. A lot of those boards and stuff, especially if it's handmade by a cowboy, may have little imperfections here and there. Same thing down here. And there we go. Well, look at that. We got a cowboy looking at this thoughtful scene. And like I said, I mean, it's your world. So if at any point you want to come back in later and, you know, say, I don't want them clouds looking like that. You know, it's your world. Do what the heck you want with it. You know, you go back in, fiddle with it all you want. Let's go ahead and just fiddle with it. Who cares? I love doing clouds. You can honestly do whole paintings just of wonderful clouds, and they're just the most beautiful things. Maybe there's a group of clouds coming in. Sun's coming from the bottom. Highlight needs to be on the bottom. Just rotate my brush. Maybe a big old storm coming along the way. I like that story. And I always tell my students, if you start to make a story out of your artwork, you know, tell yourself a little story while you're doing it, it makes it a lot more enjoyable and personable. You'll have a lot more fun. Wow, I think those clouds turned out even better. Well, I'm happy. I think we're going to sign this and call this a good one. Now, let's see. User Raxery? I'm probably butchering that. I'm sorry. It's an accent thing, I think. Well, if that's not how you pronounce your name, I apologize, and we'll kind of move on. Alright, so get my flat brush. My name's Luke Wedgeworth. Thankfully, those are nice angles that I can easily paint. I do not like painting letters. Touch that bright red. Come down here. Sign right here. L W. Perfect. Well, I hope you learned something. If you want to give this one a try at some point, feel free. Maybe yours has a cowboy moved on and it's just a fence post. That's pretty too. Alright, well, I hope that you enjoyed. And seriously, if you want to give these a shot, let me know. Drop me a line. I'd love to see what you come up with. It makes me feel real happy to see other people, you know, get creative, because we're all creative. And it's a dang shame if you don't feel that way, because you're creative too. And sometimes it takes the bravery to try. I'll say it a million times because Arthur Morgan said it. I've done a million bad paintings before I ever did a single good one. So don't feel ashamed if you make a mistake. Keep going. Have fun. Tell yourself a story. Do a little painting. Alright. So, y'all have a good morning. Thanks for joining.